So I am joined by Jeff Merkel, Head of Marketing at Helcim, Greg Sheppard, Chief Marketing Officer at Templafy, and Centerfield's own CMO, John Busby. As John mentioned earlier, in exchange for our panelists' time, we're donating to a charity of their choice. So I would love each of our panelists to introduce themselves, their businesses, and to speak briefly about the charities that they chose. So Greg, would you mind, let's start with you.
Sure. So thanks for having me. I'm Greg Sheppard. I'm the CMO of Templafy. I just moved into the CMO role actually this summer. I previously led our sales organization, building and scaling the foundation there. So maybe a different perspective. Templafy is a content enablement platform that enables enterprises all over the world to distribute content, document templates, and data to employees directly within the tools they use every day. So think Microsoft Office and Google Workspace. My charity of choice is called Project Access, and it's an organization that looks to combat unequal access to higher education. It's something that a number of Templafy employees actually volunteer with, providing mentorship to college applications and navigating schooling and their professional careers.
Awesome. And Jeff, can you introduce yourself?
Yeah, thanks for having me. So I'm Jeff Merkel. I head up marketing here at Helcim. We are a payments company. So we are striving to be the world's most loved payments company. We operate in the space like a Square or a PayPal for small businesses. And we try to give every business, every possible edge we can, from lower rates, smarter tools, and try to put a human touch on everything that we do. I actually come from quite a creative background, so maybe a unique perspective there. My marketing skills are still being sharpened. We're kind of a unique company in the sense that we are established. We've been around for a while, but we kind of relaunched our company, our service, I should say, just over a year and a half ago. So we're kind of this weird hybrid established company and kind of have a startup mindset as well. So some unique challenges that we face there. In terms of the charity that we've chosen, so we chose the Alberta Animal Rescue Crew Society. So that's everyone loves animals. We're no different. We've adopted a few of our pets from this society, and we volunteer there as well. So that was an easy one for us.
I love that. And John, most people know you, but I'd love you to just kind of give a little bit of background on yourself, if that's okay.
Sure. Yeah, I'm John Busby, Centerfield CMO. My background's in marketing, product, and analytics. We help many of the world's top brands acquire more customers in many verticals, including B2B through business.com and Business News Daily. As I mentioned at the outset, if you were here at the top, Centerfield, one of our core values is giving back, and we've given more than $150,000 to charity over the last 18 months. I chose to spotlight St. Jude Research Hospital. Our Director of Client Services, Lauren, is organizing in the company a fundraiser for that, and I wanted to give that a shout out.
Love that. All right, so I thought we'd kick it off by discussing customer research and how that informs our messaging strategies. Get each of your takes on this. And so, Greg, if you don't mind, do you mind just kind of speaking to that? Also, buyer personas, are they worth it?
Yeah, so I think they're linked. Personas come from research, and yes, definitely worth it. It's been a big focus area for us actually over the last year, is really fine tuning not just the personas, but making them really actionable and clear, and using them to inform marketing and sales and lots of aspects of our business. So an example would be a persona for us would be, let's say, someone who a VP of brand, and understanding their pains and what they have to deal with and how we can help them. So let's say launching a rebrand. Rebranding something that they're passionate about. They spend all this money and time and energy creating a great brand, creating all this great content, and all the money marketing it externally. What often happens is they forget about their internal teams. They stick a template, a new logo in a DAM somewhere, an intranet. No one goes there because employees take the path of least resistance and just open up Office and G Suite and so on and themselves. And so what Templafy does for that persona is we show them how they can enable their rebrand by enabling all their employees to access all the right content, all the right templates directly within the tools they use every day. Employees are happy, it's in their workflow, no extra work, and they're using the best content. The brand folks are happy because it's being adopted. So we work with lots of big enterprise companies doing exactly that. So that's a good example of a persona kind of coming to life and being real for our customers.
Yeah, that's great. And Jeff, how have you sort of taken your customer research and leveraged that in your own marketing and messaging strategies?
Yeah, for us, I mean, it's it's kind of a blessing and a curse when you're servicing SMBs, because it's just such a wide swath of people that you're trying to talk to at all times. So I mean, like, we know the general demographics, 35 to 55, pretty evenly split between male and female, but beyond that, I mean, you're looking at every industry pretty much, and it can become really difficult. So for us, we've kind of taken a different approach. Rather than demographics, it's really like psychographics that we focus on, which is a little bit different for financial services, but we do try to really seek out that value alignment, which I think for us really narrows it down in terms of the kind of merchants that are attracted to our business. The hard part is trying to acquire customers with that, because as we know with B2B, it's very rational, the decision making, but we do find that on the loyalty and retention side of things that that's why people stick with us, that's why people love us, and that's why people refer us. So yeah, really trying to, I think, like over the last year or so, we really honed in on value alignment, really being a way for us to try to target, and we're still trying to play catch up in terms of how do we actually acquire customers on that, but we are making some strides there. And a lot of it's through brand, which when you're looking at B2B is sometimes a dirty word, but it is something that we've found some success with.
Yeah, very interesting. Different takes. John, can you weigh in on how Centerfield is, leveraging our customer data?
I think one of the things I'm really interested in investing more in is creating messaging and materials for specific industries. Like there's the buyer persona, like head of affiliate marketing or head of brand or whatever. And then there's also the unique needs and dynamics of an industry or a vertical. We've focused on trying to understand that in a much bigger way this year, and it started to show some benefits. And so that's where we'll be doing even more in 2022.
Yeah, and that kind of leads me to that, elusive marketing mix, right? There's just so many touch points these days. And maybe John, you can kind of kick this off as to, how we invest in certain, where we're allocating our budget when it comes to the marketing budget overall. Yeah,
probably like many of you've shifted your trade show budget to virtual. And so we typically be hosting something like this in person. And so shifting to digital has been a really important part of our marketing mix for like top of funnel things. We've also been publishing more research. The other thing I would say in terms of media mix, we're spending more on paid search and social for B2B customer generation. If you consider LinkedIn to be social, I guess that's what I really mean by that. We've tried to focus a lot on making that work this year, and so far we've seen some success there.
Yeah, and Jeff, as far as what has been effective for you guys, can you explain a little bit about what's been working?
Yeah, I mean, we've had our challenges, with paid recently. Certainly with kind of all the changes in that whole world. For us, we've seen a lot of movement in the partnerships. I think for us, it's a really good fit because, again, kind of seeking out value alignment, even with the platforms and kind of third-party editorial that that lines up with. It works really well for us. So it's the kind of thing that as soon as there's a partner willing to engage with us, there's usually budget that to be found there. And we just can't find enough. Like that's, but there is a lot out there, and we are investing a lot into that right now. So we find that it's kind of a space that's evolving quickly. There's a lot of interesting new hybrid affiliate models out there now that weren't there a year or two before. So and also like a lot of big players like people like CNN and Forbes and these bigger platforms getting into the space too. So there's a lot of opportunity there. So we've found that a lot of our efforts have just naturally gone there over the past year and a half or so.
Yeah, and Greg, where have you sort of invested the bulk of your marketing budget this past year? What's been working for you?
Similar to what John said, I think the other thing I would highlight is kind of going back to what I was saying about the personas and the pains that our specific customers have. We've definitely invested a bit more in content and then using ABM to distribute that content, understanding who the right buyers are for us, using data and research to understand that, and then serving them the right content in their voice, the value that they get from Templafy, as opposed to us just talking about our great product, which is great, but that's been really effective for us.
That's great to hear. All right, so I'm going to shift over into ROI, right? It's sort of a struggle for, I think, a lot of marketers, and not everyone gets it right. But I'd love to hear how each of you sort of tackles that. I know for Centerfield, John, we are constantly trying to measure the marketing impact of what we do, and there's that kind of elusive halo effect. So do you mind speaking to that a little bit? And then Greg and Jeff, I'd love your take on this as well.
Yeah, thanks, Danielle. I think there are two things that we're trying to get better at, and I'd love, Greg and Jeff, your feedback if you have advice for me on this. One is we know that we're getting new inbound requests that we can't explain, and so do we how do we attribute that? How do we attribute that to marketing? What's the appropriate level to attribute that to our top of funnel brand efforts? That's kind of area number one that we're focused on. The second area that we're focused on is all of our closed business is a collaboration between sales and marketing. And oftentimes our sales team or business development team will talk to someone first, marketing will come in and give a little help, and then and the deal's closed, or it goes vice versa. And so when we're thinking about how big the marketing budget should be, how much credit should we be giving ourselves for that revenue? That's something that we're still trying to figure out.
Yeah, well, I'll say this: you should take credit for all of it. Is the easy answer.
Why didn't I think of that?
Love it.
Yeah, exactly. I think maybe my perspective is a little bit different because I've spent a lot of time in marketing. I've also spent time in sales and led our sales team at Templafy too. But I think when we think about what marketing is driving, it's a little less on we understand, we look at ROI, look at CAC, we look at the different channels, but it's overall how we know we're lifting all boats, right? We know we're driving more opportunities. And so what we're really focused on is are we driving the right opportunities, like the high ICPs, as we call them, opportunities, and whether they're direct, whether they're certain channels, whether we've tracked influenced opportunities that we know they've seen our content, interacted with it, then a salesperson's closing, so we're tracking that. So we kind of look at a host of different metrics around that. And then the other thing I would add is that it's tricky in an enterprise software business that has a long cycle to buy. So measuring ROI is one piece, but it's like way too late. So we also look at early indicators of like ICPs going through different opportunity stages and things like that. So that's been helpful for us.
Yeah, I mean, for us, it's funny, John. I mean, you mentioned new inbound requests that you can't be explained. That would be a welcome problem for us to have, I think. We've really invested in kind of developing internally the infrastructure to track attribution across all of our channels. So we're very much inbound. We haven't until now actually had an outbound sales team. So I I think the challenge for us is really kind of focusing on what's important. When you're tracking conversions across channels, the challenge is always trying to figure out like how are you attributing that? What are you giving the weight to? For us, we're trying to chip away at a brand awareness problem. So for us, we want to give more value to those discovery channels that are actually driving awareness for us. But again, it's really a moving target because every way that you engage with those channels, has its own challenges and unique ways of looking at it. So for us, it's really just been developing the infrastructure to be able to get line of sight on those things. And then after that, then it's just, constantly trying to evolve it and keep pace with everything else that's going on so that you have some semblance of an idea of, of where the impact is coming from. But yeah, I would say really trying to build the tools internally to really try to get insight into that has been the biggest challenge, but also kind of like the biggest benefit that we've got in that area.
Yeah, we kind of touched on this, that relationship between sales and marketing, and what is the optimal relationship? I don't know if anyone wants to kind of jump in and let us know. I mean, Greg, you kind of had that, yeah, you have that background, so I'd love to hear.
I look at it as it needs to be, when it's working well, it's a really tight collaborative partnership. So in our kind of business, we have marketing, we have an SDR team that's a demand generation function, just like, digital channels are for us. And then we have AEs as well, and all sorts of people selling. And if we're out there talking about Templafy and all the great value that we bring towards to our customers in a different way than our SDR teams are, then we're doing something wrong, right? Because ideally, we're going after the right kind of customers or prospects together with the same kind of messaging at the same time. So it really needs to be a collaborative relationship, really.
How do you do that? Like, how do you maintain that consistency? What has worked for you?
Yeah, it's a good question. So I think one is the work we did around the personas and the actionability and the customer pains and creating a whole framework around that. And then from a software perspective, we use Templafy. So we use our own software to make sure everyone is accessing the right information, the right language directly in what they're using every day. So our SDRs are emailing and using Outlook. Well, Templafy lives in Outlook. They're accessing, an AE is accessing the right pitch deck to use. It's in PowerPoint. So we kind of use Templafy.
Yeah, no, that's great. And Jeff, you've mentioned kind of moving in-house. I know we've talked a lot about like automated tools in the past at our last summit. And I'd be interested to hear, how that process has been and how maybe that's been more effective for you.
Yeah, I mean, we're in a bit of a unique situation because, I mean, as I mentioned, we relaunched our kind of our entire service about 1.5 years ago. So up until that point, I mean, like, we weren't doing a lot of true marketing. I would say we were kind of just idling a little bit, waiting for, the launch. So since then, we've really scaled up our team. Really in the past year, we've, about 3 times the size of where we were 1 year ago. And for us, we've always really valued keeping things in-house. Like, we have customer service in-house, we build everything in-house. We really, for better or for worse, we lean towards building our own tools and doing things ourselves. And I think that's paid off for us. So certainly from a marketing perspective, as I said, my background is creative. So we kind of started with like a creative content creation team, which then kind of turned into, what it is now. And, we've dabbled in outsourcing, with SEO and things like that. And we found that, every time we try that, it's just, we always come to the same conclusion that, let's bring this in-house. Let's get, at least one expert in-house that can kind of help educate us on how to do this and kind of demystify it a little bit. So it's challenging trying to find those people, I think, when you're bringing resources in-house to, because you have to be, you have to have some awareness of what you're looking for. I think the advantage for us primarily really has just been the control. Creatively doing your own content, our own video. Really the only thing we outsource is like VO, and that's only sometimes, and maybe music. Everything else we do in-house, and I think it's also a really nice morale boost for the team when you can kind of create something, put it to market, and then kind of give yourself a bit of a pat on the back when it resonates with people. So For us, it's worked really well, and I think it seems like the industry is moving in that direction. So I would encourage anybody, if you're curious about it, to at least look into it, because it does have a lot of benefits.
Yeah, I love that. I was just looking at our chat. We have some questions. There was one that I think applied to the question prior about that sales and marketing relationship. When sales are trending south, what do you guys do to keep salespeople and marketing from blaming each other? I thought that was an interesting question. Does anyone want to touch on that?
Group hug is good.
Yeah.
I just think it's a lot of frequent communication, understanding when something sells, why, and understanding when a customer leaves or a sale doesn't close. Just being really candid and try to understand why that is. When sales and marketing sees themselves as one single team, that's the best outcome.
For sure. Anyone have anything else to add there?
No, I think I agree. Communication. I also think sometimes marketers forget that salespeople's there's a pressure on a week to week to quarter that salespeople are under, that it does, not saying it's right to blame, it's not, but I understand. I think I sometimes take it with I get why you're saying this, but let me explain why that's not actually true.
Yeah. We have another question about, I'm a newbie to marketing for small company marketing channels. Can I get some examples of what I can work on? And I kind of want to use that to pivot to our final question, which is trends for next year, right? Obviously there's the tried and true channels and touch points, but there's also, some new opportunities in the new year. Maybe Jeff, you can speak to, I know you've spoken to, partnerships, but are there other, anything else you're interested in testing, or other channels that you found most effective?
Yeah, I touched on a little bit already, but I think something that we're noticing a lot, obviously partnerships I think is growing as a growing space right now. Also, I just mentioned, but bringing everything in house, and I think with everything going cookieless and some of the challenges that are being presented in the digital space, it's tougher than ever to get line of sight on things. So I think for us, something that we've been testing for a while, but I think there's a bit more urgency now with the way that things are changing, is to really kind of get your feet beneath you in terms of data, and modeling your attribution and things like that, as I mentioned, because I think sometimes you can have a bit of an over-reliance on those third parties, and especially like the Facebooks and the Googles to be your North Star for things. But for us, I think really just focusing on doing as much as we can by ourselves. And then the other thing too is, certainly from a B2B perspective, I think there's been a trend for a little while where, and this is maybe more appropriate for a business like ours who target smaller businesses rather than enterprise, but I think there's a lot of B2C principles kind of bleeding into B2B marketing. And we are embracing that head on. We very much are, trying to be a brand-led company, around our values. We've always been a values-led company. So I think that's something that, it's a little scary for us because it's pretty risky, especially in in the financial services space where things are, pretty rational. But I do think, I do see things moving in that direction. And I think financial services is probably a little late to the party on that. But I think the opportunity exists for us here. So I think anytime you can really try to connect with people on a human level, that's obviously happening, it's been happening in B2C for years, but B2B, it's an interesting thing to explore, and yeah, we're having a lot of fun with that.
Yeah, I love that. And Greg, how are you sort of cutting through that noise?
Yeah, I think, Jeff, what you said about connecting on human level makes a lot of sense. And I think to me that the B2B version of that is that marketers have to stop talking about why their product is so great, and more about why the problems it solves and why a customer should care about it, and talking in their language. And I think that's what we've seen works and resonates really well, is when we stop talking about our product, which is great, but there's a lot of software products and a lot of companies out there that have great things. You got to turn it into what's relevant for that person you're talking to and really being specific to them.
Yeah, John, do you have anything to add on that sort of personalization element?
I love both Greg and Jeff's answers. So I'll kind of answer a slightly different question. As to the one earlier about outsource versus insource, we insource, or we do ourselves content and SEO because we believe that like content's a core, something that you just need to be awesome at, and then we outsource PR. And so if anybody ever wants to dive deeper into why we do that, feel free to reach out to me. But then as to the question of like a newbie and like what's working and what do you do next year, I think that if you're really good at understanding the messaging for like hyper specific problems that you solve, then you can kind of work your way up from there. So we've done a lot of work this year on like really long tail content and marketing, and I would highly recommend everybody focuses on that in 2022.
Awesome. Well, it seems like we have time for one more question. I would love to know, not to end on a low note here, but just maybe your biggest learnings from this past year. It's been one hell of a year, right? So what sort of can you take? What nugget can you take as we sort of plan, as we all are now, for the next year? Who wants to start with that?
I can jump in there.
Thanks.
I think for us, I mean, and this is kind of, zooming out a little bit, but, I think work from home has been like a huge conversation that's been happening everywhere. And it just seems like it just won't go away. And it's a lot of people are saying it's here to stay. And there's a lot of debate going on around that. And I think one thing that we found, I mean, we're in a bit of a unique position. We moved into like this nice, beautiful new office space, like right before the pandemic. So we were sent home pretty early and didn't really get to enjoy it, right? And we recently come back. And I think one thing that we've really noticed is just how energizing it is to be around people again. I think we all coped and I think working from home and doing the whole remote thing, it was incredible to me actually how quickly that happened for a lot of businesses and how seamless it was. It kind of speaks to kind of like the underlying infrastructure that's already there. Obviously it accelerated a lot of things, but for us, when we came back, it was remarkable to me, like just that power of being in person with people. And it was palpable, right? When you actually had your first in-person meeting again, you're like, wow, you forget what it feels like. And it was just like, okay, so there's something to this, this collaboration. And again, I know it's a bit zoomed out, but to me, that was a really, really powerful insight that we definitely noticed, kind of at the tail end of this whole situation.
No, I think it's absolutely a factor in how we're going to be messaging and how we sort of look at the customer in our own businesses.
100%, yeah.
Yeah, I would say actually piggyback a little bit on that note. So I'm home today, but I was in our office yesterday. I'll be there tomorrow. I think like the theme for us is around like flexibility. So I 100% agree. It's awesome to be in person, and there are things that you lose, but also what the last year and a half has taught us is like flexibility is super important, and there's a evaluation of being home for dinner with your kids or being there for certain things in a way that you might have missed stuff before. You kind of got to see what you missed. And that was eye-opening. So having that right level of flexibility, I think is to my opinion, is going to be the future, but we'll see.
Oh man, I love Greg and Jeff's answer so much better than mine. Mine was going to be super. Mine was going to be super tactical. I just like all the learnings that we've had this year have been from like really looking and understanding all the data that's coming in and trying to make like good estimations based on the data. I wish I had Greg and Jeff's observation, because it's been amazing how productive that we've been able to be as a marketing organization, working remote, and getting together has been really special too. But I'm still going to stick with study the data as granularly as you can.
For sure. Thank you all so much. It's been a really great session.